A lot of hot air in that general vicinity. Aircon's on. We've still got level. G'day listeners and welcome back to another episode of the Keeper League podcast. We're the AFL fantasy podcast that doesn't talk about the superstars. We only talk about the lesser knowns and the players that are going to bring value to your draft and Keeper League teams. My name's Hef and I'm joined by Kays and Dos. How you doing, boys?
Good, thanks, mate. Yeah, very good indeed.
All right, for those looking, I just caught a picture of you on the stream with your Chris Main get up from the... well, you talk us through. What did we release today, Dos?
We released our world-famous pre-season song. This year focusing on the latest GOAT in our 4-part quadrilogy. Patrick Lipinski is now being dubbed a GOAT and the video is now available for everyone.
You've copped a bit of hate in the fantasy community because apparently you jinx players when you sing about them. So
no, this is not true.
Is that true or is that just
No, I know you've got Sherlock Dossey to get on the case on this one. I didn't bring the hat tonight actually, but I need to go back and do the stats. But no, Hugh McCluggage is a anointed GOAT in my song. So is Fiorini, who, if I'm not mistaken, had a pretty successful year last year. Paddy Dow's in for a breakout year in 2022. And Lipinski, of course, we're going to see successful as well.
Do you is it actually was it Fiorini first or McCluggage?
Fiorini was the first.
So, but then I reckon he had a lull year and then he did McCluggage and he didn't really kick that year. So maybe it's just there's like a little bit of a lull year after this song.
No, there's no evidence for that.
I need some Sherlock Dossey on this. Oh, yeah. I don't think McCluggage was that bad after. I think he actually kind of broke COVID out that year. I think
it was like that. It was the COVID year. Yeah. So
anyway, but look, if you haven't seen it yet, if you've been living under a rock, so to speak, it's out on all the socials: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube.
And just quickly, thank you, Hef, for all the work you put in. It was a massive effort. Obviously, I love doing the lyrics and getting the song out there, but yeah, it wouldn't have happened without you, mate. So thank you very much.
I think we're a good team. Like I can't come up with the witty lyrics like you can, so and the catchy tunes. So
it's a good duo.
And
of course, Kays. And of course, Kays' acting was ridiculously good from Kays as well.
Not many people know this, but Kays used to star in musicals and sing and dance and stuff in high school. So Dossey
finally came in use in
Dossey was doubting it, and I was like, "You just wait and see him. This guy can cut a rug, and he can sing and dance, and he can act. He's a triple threat, basically." So it was good to have him in the video. First video appearance too. We've been trying to get you in for a couple of years, but you've always been busy on the weekends. We've been filming, so yeah, it's good to get you into one finally. All right, let's talk about the weekend, I guess. But Kays, I think you've got something you want to bring in.
I did. I just had a tweet come in throughout the week. Haven't actually put this to the group yet. I thought I'd bring it up live on air.
Okay.
Just some feedback from one of our listeners.
All right.
From Steve, his name is. He said, love your work.
Steve Fizz?
No. Kays, I'm wondering whether you and Hef are planning to address Doss's appalling third-person antics on the pod. Said, perhaps there needs to be an on-air punishment, $10 to charity every time Doss refers to himself in the third person.
Already 50 deep.
So we could just do a little tester tonight and see how many times old third-person Doss comes into the show and just see where we might be at on charitable donations.
I don't know if I'm on board this decision.
Hey, Hef's had to do something for, reviews and ratings.
We'll have to
Are you not
wait
prepared
and
to
see.
give back to, a charitable cause for a little bit of self-promotion?
It's going to be tough.
I just don't think you could do it. Like, there's no point.
No, you couldn't.
You wouldn't actually be able to do it.
He'd be broke.
Yeah.
You'd go to work all week.
I would be.
You would lose your house and home. You'd be
Dossie
out
would
your
be
ass.
broke.
There we go. You need one of those little buttons.
There you
in
go.
the
Just did one then. Yep. Didn't even realise he did it. I don't
That was
think either.
intentional. Come on,
Okay.
boys.
All right. Fair enough. All right. Well, Dossie's got a nice hairdo. He obviously didn't run the lawnmower 4.0 over the top of it this week to get ready. Actually, you were complaining all weekend about you didn't get a haircut for the video.
Yeah, I was disappointed. Maybe
should have just run the Manscaped
I should
over
have
the top,
busted
the
it out.
lawnmower
Now. I
over
want to
the top.
grow it out a bit. I don't like the short hair look, but
Mate, you've been sent like a world-class trimmer, and it's not just for your balls. You can use it on your head,
I should have gone the side cut. I should have gone something done.
Yeah.
You guys both got
that.
freshies.
I
I
got
can
a
tell
freshie,
that
yeah.
you wanted
Yeah.
to star, superstars of the show. Yeah,
Gotta look at-
I was left behind. Not Dossie.
My issue was
left behind.
I get greys in my beard now. And if I don't like trimming my own beard because I just don't like getting the hair over it, so I go to the barber, and it just seems stupid to go to the barber without getting a beard, trim, not your haircut. So I got my haircut too. But yeah.
Beard would be nice.
Yeah, maybe
One
you
day.
should just grow one of them then, mate. But anyway, support for the Keep League podcast is brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped recently launched the Ultimate Men's Hygiene Bundle, the Performance Package 4.0. Join over 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer just for you listeners of the Keep League podcast. You get 20% off and free shipping worldwide with the code KEEPER20 at manscaped.com. So get on board that, grab some products. It doesn't have to be the Lawnmower 4.0. They can be pretty pricey, but you can grab some ball deodorant, some ball toner, there's aftershave, there's everything there you could possibly want for your men's grooming. So get on board that. Anyway, big weekend in football. We had some practice matches, boys. I know, Kays, you love putting lots of emphasis and weight on practice matches. You think they're gospel. You take everything out of them into the season. Mm-hmm. So let's get those underway, all right? Let's talk about Essendon versus Western Bulldogs.
Correct. Of the 3 games I watched, I'd put the most emphasis on this game, actually, because the other 2 were bloody 6-quarter, 6 period
awful.
ordeals, which are just a joke. But we'll get into them later.
They shouldn't be allowed to do that.
We'll get into that later. But anyway, we'll start off with the Dons v the Dogs game. The first one, everyone was looking at Andrew Mcgrath. He was absolutely racking them up across half back. Now, he's kind of one of those players who'll be almost borderline keeper for a few teams just because he's that, mid-only at the moment, teetering around an average kind of midfield score. But if he gets that move to half back permanently, he could be one to draft purely to try and, see if he's going to get that DPP. Now, obviously I don't like drafting for DPP, but the fact is that Essendon put out a pretty decent side on whenever it was, Wednesday, Thursday. And, Heppel was playing back there, Horne was playing back there, and Mcgrath was playing back there. So I just like the fact that he was in that role, playing it really nicely. They had Langford and they had Cox on the wings. So where I thought Mcgrath might play a bit of footy. So I reckon he's a huge chance to grab some DPP.
Yeah, there's been messaging as well from Essendon that they're going to play him, and I think it was Merritt as well, sort of rotating from that midfield to the half-back. And clearly McGrath's going to be the one that, is the mainstay compared to the midfield because there's just not the room to fit him in. And I think we were talking, I covered Essendon in our pre-season shows, and I just wasn't that high on McGrath based on the fact that, or in our rankings maybe, because I don't know if he's 2G for P probably, but in our rankings, I had him lower just because I thought he might be stuck in that Angus Brayshaw wing negating role. And instead, he's got this juicy halfback role. I'm just way keener to get him involved with McGrath stocks now.
Well, yeah, considering he only averaged 85 last year, which is borderline, keeper if you got a strong midfield and that kind of thing.
A lot of ineffective games, though.
Yeah, I know, but it always comes into calculations, especially depending on your list keeper size. But definitely want to watch this weekend with that role and see if it continues.
You'd take 85 from a defender every week.
100%.
Yeah.
Nick Cox is the one I want to talk about. He was a real eye catcher. He got plenty of the footy. His foot skills let him down early. Had a lot of one-step kicks, but did rectify that later on in the game. What I loved is he floated back nicely into defence and took a couple really strong grabs. There was one that he kind of stepped in front of Steph Martin, the big bustling ruckman, and just plucked it with a lot of courage. So those kind of things make me excited as a Bombers fan. But look, he worked really hard up and down, and if he's playing that genuine wing role, we know that a good winger can get back, help out back there, get a couple cheap kicks in a pocket and that kind of thing. And I think he's got that thirst, to use your word, Dossie. He likes to run back and and help out the defence. So big tick for the wingman there. Kyle Langford was the other one who played on a wing, and probably bad for that DPP because we were wondering maybe he'll get it, maybe he'll play forward, but he looked very comfortable on that wing and actually really good. I'd almost call him a bit of a draft sleeper if he's starting up, because he's one the same kind of thing, average that mid 80s, but the way he was playing during the week was very impressive.
He's the one that probably would have maybe gone forward if Mcgrath went back into the midfield. So it was kind of just a result of that.
Yeah. Peter Wright was pretty solid around the ground. He had Tim English measure at times, and
who doesn't in the ruck though?
Well, Sam Draper actually didn't. He was pretty poor, I thought. Okay. Timmy English had a pretty good day. I thought I'd see a bit more improvement from Draper, actually, but he's almost looking to me like he's an impact ruckman, almost like a bit of a Shane Mumford, one of the guys in our group chat said. He'll commit and he'll give you all for a small period of time, but he's not necessarily as mobile as potentially someone like a Tim English or Max Gawn who can get around the ground. But maybe you need to blow out, see how he kind of goes this week as well. Hef, couple guys who you'll be very interested to hear about. Archie Perkins. He had one hell of a game.
Yeah, I actually watched it.
Hey?
I watched it.
And tell you what, the haircut. Him and Jai Caldwell were almost impossible to tell apart.
Yeah.
Both kind of solid, nuggety, medium-sized dudes, same kind of hair. 18 and 8 are their two numbers.
I will say Perkins does look a bit thicker than he does last year. It looks like he's put on a little bit.
Yeah. Or 16 and 6, whatever it is.
And then the haircut.
The haircut. But he looked really good. Played that high half-forward role, took a couple nice grabs, and I think he's going to be a really good pickup in drafts, or he'll potentially be around in a lot of redrafts because, second-year player, not always guaranteed to blossom. But if he plays this role, he's going to be locked into probably forward status again next year when that breakout could really come. So you'll kind of be drafting a 2 to 3 year forward and could be very handy.
The forward status with him and a few CBAs mixed in here and there, but then also being that fifth midfielder on the ball-ins in the half-forward line and stuff like that. So, it's a really good sign that there is potential use for him in the midfield a lot more later on. So, yeah.
Another couple of ones. Jai Caldwell was a little concerning. His role was kind of diminished, but obviously a pretty stacked midfield. They also, the Bombers also obviously had a lot of full-time mids playing. So Caldwell did have a good intra-club game, so I'm happy to give him the benefit of the doubt for a quieter game, but just one who's probably a bit concerning, especially because I went pretty high on him in some of my ranks, so will be one I'm watching this week. Jordan Ridley was amazing. No issues there. He will continue to have a great year. The other one that I just want to touch on is Ben Hobbs. A lot of people have him high in their ranks and stuff like that, but he really only played the last quarter of the game. He did go straight into the guts, yes, but my concern is that maybe Essendon only see him as a midfielder, and their midfield's so stacked, whereas they didn't put him forward. I know that, McDonald, Tip and Woody's out. I don't think they're going to have him plugging holes in forward pockets or on a wing. I think their midfield runs too deep, and I don't see him being a big player this year.
I managed to catch a bit of this game. I actually was going to say he was the one that I noticed showing significant signs of thirst in that last. He only played a quarter and had like 7 touches.
Yeah,
it's the way that he was calling when he didn't have the ball. He wanted it back. I'll tell you what, I was really I know what you're saying. I do understand what you're saying in terms of where's his spot in the side, but when he plays, this guy looks like a fantasy stud.
He does. I wouldn't be keen on him this year getting a lot of game time. Especially people are talking about him. I should put him in my classic team. No, I don't think he's playing. The guy who could sneak in and will be cheap as chips is Tex Wanganeen. So he kicked a couple snags, also played basically the last quarter. Looked electric. He was really, really good. So
not going to be a fantasy type.
Not going to be a fantasy type, no. But he's going to be one for a classic, for example, that might play because we need a small forward because Waller is injured. So I'd lean towards getting him in as opposed to someone like...
Got signed, straight after the game, basically.
Yeah. Ben Hobbs.
It's like 2 kicks, 2 goals.
A couple of the dogs here. Adam Treloar, he was amazing. So I think a couple of us doubted him in our forward ranks, but he looked fit and super hungry. I've got him...
Jeez, we're going 2G, 4P here, Cass. I know, we got drafts coming up. I know.
But top 3, I reckon he's going to be a top 3 forward this year.
Sweet.
Your boy Bailey Williams, Doss, he was very quiet. He played that lockdown role I was worried about. He played on Aaron Francis and honestly couldn't run off him if he tried. And that's saying, look, I know Alex Keith and Tim O'Brien were out injured, but he didn't really have that forward running, creative game off the halfback flank. So was playing a bit more of a lockdown role, as was Josh Shackey. We were interested to see how he'd go. He did play back, but a very unappealing fantasy game. Aaron Norn was another one who was pretty solid working into the game as that tall target as a forward. The couple eye catchers for me, Tim English. He looked like he'd really come on from last season. They gave him a lot more responsibility in the middle, basically 50-50 split between him and Steph Martin. Had 17 hit outs. As I said, I wasn't that impressed by Draper. I thought English, covered the ground better and also, actually was pretty good in the ruck. But the big one for me is Ed Richards. So he had a heap of run and dash off halfback. I reckon he was almost best on ground in the first half for the Dogs. Taylor Dre wasn't playing in that first half, noted, but it did result with him having a bit of a quiet second half. But I reckon he would be a player who would get plenty of opportunity at another club, Ed Richards. He was really, really impressive. So
yeah, he was
maybe one to just draft late on the off chance that, one of those guys gets injured off halfback for the Dogs and you've got someone who has a good bit of fantasy now. So
Dale will make it very hard for him.
100%.
I know what you mean.
It was encouraging to see him in the first half of that
he was
game.
awesome. He was awesome. I do agree. It's definitely, he's always shown signs as well of he could do something.
He kicked 4 snags in one of his first games. I think it was his second, third game or something. He kicked a few snags and it was like, this guy looks like a star. And then, it's just been kind of a very, very slow burn.
Absolutely. We'll get on to Carlton versus St Kilda now. So Matt Kennedy, Kays, I owe you an apology. Well, I can't do.
What time was this? I want to clip this for the rest of my life.
No. Well, I said he wouldn't be above the 50% range like the other 3 would. He did only have 47% of the CBAs, but that's pretty damn close. I'll give you that. All right. Might be a factor while Walsh is out, I think. Yeah. So he played it forward a bit too, Kennedy did. So genuine chance of DPP there. But when you think about it, he suits the kind of midfield that Port Adelaide played at. He played at Port Adelaide. Michael Voss played at Port Adelaide. So, when you think about Boak, Ollie Wines being your contested beat, Willem Drew, they were like the 3 most attended. He really likes that contested style of player. So Matt Kennedy could be one of those players that he kind of rotates through there a lot more often as well. So could be very interesting. But yeah, he did look good. He kind of looked like picked up where he left off last season. But again, we've got to note that Walsh was out and they have added George Hewitt into that midfield mix a lot more as well. So he could fall back down when Walsh comes back. But it could be right early, I think. Sorry, Dossie, you looked at me like you had something to say.
No, mate, but Matt Kennedy, I mean, he's obviously, when he plays, he can score. It's just, like you said, I think you might have mentioned, Walsh is coming back soon. Their midfield looks pretty stacked.
You're going to have 6 weeks of Matt Kennedy in your side.
Yeah, pretty much.
But, you're not wrong in that. If there's a new coach, does he see something in him that the previous coaches haven't in terms of when he plays, he can play well, and it's it just seems like something's missing. Can Voss unlock what the missing piece has been?
Just keep your eye on him, I think. That's just something. See what happens this weekend as well. Look, now I did some sleuthing this week. Old Watson Hef here, F Watson, did some sleuthing during the week. I don't have my Detective Dossie hat or anything like that. I don't have my magnifying glass, not a monocle, like I said last week. I received a message from a Champion Data employee just before the show started, and he said, if you want any fantasy scores from the weekend, send them through and I'll give you the scores. So I did all the ones I was talking about to make myself look good and gave you guys nothing. So I didn't. I did a few.
Actually rolls. Absolutely. This is week to week.
I didn't want to actually give him the whole show doc because that would just be too much work. So I grabbed quite a few out of the games I was looking at. So George Hewitt is one I actually got. I got some from your games too, don't worry.
White anting.
Oh, God. I got some. I was just saying I got some from your games. It was a joke. Anyway, George Hewitt is one I grabbed the actual fantasy score for. So he got 96 AFL fantasy points on the weekend. He had 67% of the centre bounce attendances, laid a lot of tackles, was firmly in that midfield mix. He's listed as a defender this year. He's going to be good for at least 1 year, I think. He's going to be a decent scorer this year. And just playing in that midfield mix, listed as a defender, he's going to be so handy in keeper teams. I don't know how I'd go rating him as a sole midfielder going forward, but I'm liking him for this year, that's for sure.
I already had to apologise to the Statesman on Pod for this one already.
George Hewitt,
I think, I'm kind of already taking the L on it. I know it's early, it's very, very early, but he looked so good, and also just all the messaging coming out that he's going to be, in that mix, and he does provide that different look that they haven't had there in a while. Maybe it's kind of like what Ed Curnow has brought before, you know, when he was kind of prime Curnow. And it's kind of what they've missed, you know, as Curnow's kind of gotten older and moved out of that role. So I think Hewitt does provide a different look. And I think what I was surprised by was how much he was doing away from the contest. Like, he was getting involved outside of just the contested ball. So he was kind of doing what the Statesman has sort of let us know, and that he reckons he can do a bit more of that loose ball gets that he hasn't been able to do at the Swans, and I kind of saw that, to be honest. So yeah, kind of taking the early L, but we'll see as well what the mix is when Walsh returns.
No shame in taking an L if it results in good fantasy scoring, mate.
Can I take this wig off, or I've said I've committed to a full pod, pre-pod, but it's getting a bit sweaty in there.
Oh, you got to watch the playback for Dossie's Chris Mayne get up anyway. Zack Williams is the next guy I want to talk about. So he looked good off the halfback.
Looked really good.
Pretty even share of the footy between him, Newman and Sard, though, I thought, off the halfback. Might be too many mouths to feed still, but he looks a lot better than he did last season. I think he looks settled in that halfback role. Earlier in the game, he just was in everything. So yeah,
I guess we haven't probably mentioned it too much yet. But yeah, we got to look at all these games and who was missing. And
absolutely,
Doc's the big one. Yeah, Doc is the big one. So I want to see what he's like with Doc in the side.
You will say that Doc did end up on the wing for a bit at the end of, before he kind of finished up last season. Well, I think he did actually move back to halfback, but in between. But he did spend a little bit of time on the wing in a couple of games. So let's just keep an eye on that.
There could be some optimism there. He looked way better than he did all last year.
He looked like Zack Williams of old when he was half decent at GWS. Jack Silvani, he started the game with a big shin pad on. Biggest shin pad I have ever seen. So that gives me an indication that he might be being used as a bit of backup ruck. He did do some backup ruck in the first half. So I'm not sure what will happen with DeConning's feet. He's probably not in there, but he's up. Last year he had some big games playing as that kind of backup ruck role, and I think someone went down. He ended up the number one ruck role, but just listed as a forward, I thought that might be value. I wouldn't be going high or anything like that, but just a your last round type pickups type thing.
Like, he was awesome last year.
You can stream him every now and then if you can get that ruck role, and he's
I did see some messaging from the coaching after the game, which was like, to me, reading between the lines, it sounded like Pitnet is the guy, and DeConning's kind of working his way back, and that's only if they want a second, if he can provide them something up forward. So at the moment, it's kind of like Silvani's looking like the backup ruck forward.
Carlton aren't developing players this year. They're going for finals. They've got a super easy draw. They want to turn it around. So they're going to play their best side, and I think that is probably with one ruck and a backup ruck, I think. So yeah, Silvani could go there. Lockie Fogerty, not too much to say about him. He just got some midfield minutes late. I think he was actually named in the VFL trial though. So I think he just played late and then went back there. But I don't think he fits into the team or not. Zack Fisher was another one, just like, it's always a pre-season tease. I'm not going to trust it, but he was getting quite a bit of midfield time as well, but I'm going to believe that when I see it. St Kilda, onto them. So Seb Ross, he looked good. He was firmly in the midfield mix again, 62% of the CBAs. He's one that I talked about in the Traders podcast this week as a sleeper. 279, he's going in our ADP ranks, which you can get from our website. From a guy who averaged, he almost averaged 100 a few years ago. I think it was 100 plus a few years ago. If he can get back to his old role, it could go okay. So I'm not holding heaps of faith, but yeah, it could be right. Brad Hill's one you've talked about, K's a lot of the preseason. He was definitely in defence.
How did it look?
Not great. Had a few kick-ins, but not enough to really consider. So it's just Brad Hill of last year, essentially. Jack Higgins was another one, got some midfield time, just him same self, lively, but yeah, you just need to watch him listed as a forward, I think, as well. A player that you guys have been loving in the preseason, Ryan Burns. Now, he didn't get a heap of it, but spent most of the time he played on the wing. So that's really good listed as a forward. If he can ease himself into the game a bit, I think he could be good. You guys are still pretty high, obviously, listed as a forward on Burns?
Yeah.
You're the Burns man. I just drafted him ahead of you to
is that what it is?
I'm pretty keen, but also I think I've seen a few names that, like, I reckon just one that I overlooked, which you mentioned, was, I'm talking about Jack Bytel, who didn't play in this game, but Seb Ross coming into that inside mix. I just thought he was written off in that role. Same. And him coming into that mix, and you pointing it out as well, I watched a bit of this game. He was in there all the time, 62% CBAs. It was kind of like, I was like, I thought, a Burns might get in there or a Bytel, but if Ross is back, it's kind of like bad news for the other guys.
We probably should have covered this at the start of the show. How much emphasis are you putting on
it depends
for this
not much
first week?
Not heaps. It depends on the player itself. Like if it's someone like Treloar going nuts, or Dunkley was getting a lot of them. Even then, like Bontempelli wasn't really in and stuff like that. So it's not a lot, to be honest.
It's probably more about these mid-level guys who have gone big, and you're like, are they just giving them more responsibility so they can put their hand up, and the better players are playing less?
I think a guy like Seb Ross is a good example, though. Someone that we thought was maybe past it in our keepers, and him getting that role, you know, sure, there might be some other guys that come back in, but he's an established guy, and if he shows that he can still play there, he's a guy that he's a guy that
they've got an old list.
Okay.
They're playing their strongest team. So another one of your boys, Dossie, Josh Battle. Quite a few marks in defence. He looked really good. I think I saw someone like an amateur stats. Someone just took them for the game, so they're probably not 100% perfect, but around the mark.
Where was your source this time, mate?
I didn't have. I didn't go Battle for this one. I didn't ask for Battle for this one. Literally, this happened like 20 minutes before you guys rocked up. I swear.
Just before.
Anyway. Took some kick-ins. The problem is he didn't leave the square for two of them, which is really annoying. Looks like he's going to be playing a key defensive role, though, so he'll probably have some ups and down weeks, but there's a chance there.
He's forward status, and he's going at the end of drafts.
True.
That's gold.
Yeah.
Get around him.
Tim Membry, I reckon he's probably the best fantasy key forward. When St Kilda were under the pump, he just went into defence and just took marks back there. So he got a good couple of goals as well. Like, I think I saw those same average fantasy stats. I think he got in the score in the 80s again this game. So not a keeper, but in those mid-range leagues. But he's a quality pickup that you just take out of the draft each year as a forward. He will get you a 70 most weeks. So I don't mind Tim Membry for that. And then Tom Campbell just played well, but there's no Ryder or Marshall, so we're not taking anything out of that as well. All right.
Do you see Mitch McGovern take a kick in?
Yes, I did actually.
I was like, whoa. Hold up.
Glitch in the matrix.
Yeah, exactly.
The Blues, I thought, played heaps mark kick friendly game.
Yeah, it could be fantasy friendly.
So,
yeah. All right, let's move on to the Melbourne versus North Melbourne. So Jason Horne-Francis, that's the one everyone's talking about out of this game. He took a while to get going, but he did look classy when he did. Used frequently at the CBAs and spent time up forward. He'll definitely be a gun. He's going to pick 78 in the... He's going to pick 78 in our ADP numbers. Do you think that's high or low or around the mark? Anyway.
Well, I took him at pick 70, I think, in
so that's around the
mock. Yeah. People are always going to go, and I've done some drafts already where he was gone like basically round 4. I'm not, but people buy the hype, and people, especially guys who start up with keepers who have got a lot of classic mindset that they're like, I've got to get Dacos.
It's not even just that. It's just like, everyone thinks I need to think about 5 years time from now and not right now. When you like, if you think about if an AFL, like the AFL put everyone into the pool, listed every player, put him in the pool, and the draft was taken right now, these guys wouldn't be going into the third or fourth round.
100%.
It's the same thing like with fantasy, really. Like you've got to draft a team that scores well each week.
I think 70 to 80 is probably fair. Yeah. Like it's a risk, it's a high risk play, but like, you know.
I'm just not like the fantasy. I think we spoke about it. Like I'm happy taking a Dacos super early because we've seen that.
Agree.
With him, it's like
he's in the 50s.
Yeah, but there's still questions about Horne-Francis.
Oh, please,
fantasy like AFL fantasy specifically. I think he'll be like 100. You know,
he'll be
he'll be a super coach jet.
Yeah,
I don't know yet about AFL fantasy, so like I think personally, I think people will be taking him ahead of me. That's where I'm at. But you know. Go for it if you think he's going to be an absolute fantasy gun.
Kadeen Coleman Jones was the starting ruck with Goldstein up forward. So I said he could be good value, but I think he ended up getting injured. Yeah, he did get injured. So hopefully that's not too bad. I haven't really read the reports today, but hopefully that's not too bad. But if he is the kind of number one ruck and they use Goldstein's forward and to kind of move in, which they kind of did a bit last year, there could be some real value there in Coleman Jones. And I think he's listed as a forward as well, I think. Yep. So that's another one that you could just keep your eye on. Hopefully the injury's not too bad. I should have checked up on that, but I didn't. Will Phillips and Tom Powell, kind of throwing him in the same boat here. Both used a lot of CBAs, battled against an awesome Melbourne midfield, so they kind of struggled, but it was just hard to get a gauge of where they're at. Also because Simpkin, LDU, Anderson, Cunnington, no one was really in there for North Melbourne, so that was a hard one, but just interesting to note that they were used a lot in there. The North Melbourne wing is an interesting one because last year we saw Dumont leave and they're talking about Luke McDonald going back into defence. So who's playing on the wing at North Melbourne? And the players that they rolled through this match were Polek, Curtis Taylor and Lewis Young, basically. Is that the right Young? Lewis? Lockie, is it? Lockie Young. So...
And Lazaro,
Lazaro was floating in a few different roles, but he did spend some time there as well. So it's just going to be interesting to see who gets that role because it could be a little fantasy relevance there, whoever does get it, especially if they're listed as a forward, like someone like Lazaro or something like that. For Melbourne, the big one for me was Tom Sparrow. Now, he's one I did some sleuthing with. I got a fantasy score out of him, and that was 80 AFL fantasy for him. 16 CBAs. That's the third most for Melbourne. I think it was behind Track and Oliver. So, talked about Dunstan impact, but didn't play. I don't know if Dunstan's actually in that side. James Jordan, he was on the wing a lot, so he wasn't really getting a lot of CBAs in there as well. So it seems like Sparrow and maybe Harms are kind of vying for that last midfield spot because they were both playing a bit up forward as well. I felt like they were the kind of two rotating. But yeah, if Sparrow gets it, he could be a genuine decent forward option.
I'm on board. I'm on board if we see it for the next week and it's the messaging's around there for round one. I'm on board for sure because I covered Melbourne pre-season and I only flagged, I was like, look, if Luke Dunstan, it was a big if.
Yeah.
Like, if he takes the role, just watch out for these two guys. And like obviously Jordan, they've pegged in for that outside role, which is something that I think he can do better.
Yeah, definitely.
Sparrow looked awesome last year, and what's this? His third year breakout or fourth,
yeah, I think
third year?
And I think he was a reasonably
a good junior
scorer as well. So yeah, could be
forward
another
status. Yeah, all about it.
Free swing, centre forward.
Yeah. And I'll throw James Harms in that because he was in that midfield rotation, but playing forward as well. So he's someone who could get forward status.
Did Viney play?
Spend some time. No, Viney did not play.
Okay,
so that's the other one.
I'm off.
Yeah, sorry. Probably should have mentioned that. Should have mentioned that. Sorry about that. Ben Brown's just a good streaming option. We'll kick bags every now and then, so he's a good option just to kind of have on your bench and bring him on when you need him. Luke Jackson, just get on board now. Like I think Max Gawn is still going to eat a lot of his scoring this year because Max Gawn still went ham in this game.
He scored still 140 points or something like that.
Oh, I think it was big, yeah. And he looked like he wasn't trying as well. But yeah, like someone like Jackson was just reading the play well, was getting back in defence. Like he was actually like doing that floating back roll. He was taking marks across halfback, similar to what Gawn actually does. So he's definitely going to be on the up. I don't know how big, but in the future he's just going to get there. So it doesn't matter.
So you're saying taking him in your draft like pretty early,
like third round? No, that's too early.
No, it wasn't third though, but you don't recken that's bad now. You don't reckon that's a bad call?
You boomed me last week when you said someone took him in my third round. You're like, boom.
One of my legs.
That's not a boom.
Still too early.
Anyway, that's all I'm saying. All right, move on to the Brisbane versus Adelaide game. I'm just going to mention I watched like 4 games in a row here and then I've left the rest to you guys. So Cam Rayner is the one everyone's talking about. I did some sleuthing with this one. 61 AFL fantasy points for him. The classic world is just off him at the moment after this performance, but I'm just happy he got through a game. Had a 50-50 split in the midfield.
Low Tog was it? I don't know.
You don't get those numbers.
But do you reckon he was on the ground a fair bit?
I think he was on the ground a fair bit, but he's like 50-50 forward. Like, I don't know. I think it was just up forward and not in the midfield. But the thing is, in the third quarter, we actually saw him get like a few cheap poo as a result of playing as a midfielder. So just Brisbane kind of couldn't get their attack right, so they were just chipping around the midfield trying to set things up and stuff like that. And he was getting involved in all of that. If he can do things like that, I don't want him to get an 80 plus. I think like the classic world wants for the price rise. I want him to get me a 70 each week, and I think he's going to do that as a forward in fantasy. I think he's going to do that, and he'll probably keep forward status if he plays that same split. So that's all I'm looking for out of Cam Rayner, and I reckon it's still a possibility. So I'm happy with that.
I think you need more than a 70
this year. This year I'm looking for a set. Coming back from injury, like what do you expect?
He's just going to go too early. He's going too early for the value.
Oh, true. I've got him like in last year's draft, like mid-round type thing, like late kind of thing.
So you're keeping
average. If you've got him as a keeper, like you're not going to be devastated, and
I think a lot of people are keeping 70 average forwards this year. Yeah. There is not a lot going around. Anyway, Zack Bailey, speaking of 70 average forwards, he's more than a 70 average forward at the moment. Zack Bailey looked real good. So he was firmly in the midfield mix, still floated forward a bit too. Like you just can't keep that guy away from the footy. No, he's so hungry for it.
He's a gun.
So he was looking good. I did have some doubts if he was staying up forward, but I don't think he's going to. I think he's going to be in that midfield mix.
He will be 2G for P for the rest of his career.
All right.
After this.
You've heard it here first from Chrissy Main sitting next to me.
Chrissy Main.
Sorry, I'll get you on camera if you want to do your little cool back.
It was just a wink.
Okay, there you go. No, it's gone now. Fucked it again. Anyway, Jared Berry is another one that's exciting a lot of people. Now, he's one I got super late in our mock draft that we just did, which we probably will have some numbers out when we find some time to get them. But yeah, like he's fantasy scoring just looked like welcome back to some decent fantasy scoring, I guess. He was in the midfield all day, had a massive game. He just looks ready for a big season. He's just an imposing figure in there as well. He doesn't look like he's the third or on the weekend. He just didn't look like he was the third or fourth rate midfielder. He looked like the boss in there. So he's one. Yeah, I'm really keen on this season. I'm glad I got to pick him up. Yeah, I think it was 100 plus. I got him in the mock draft. So,
but were they actually playing? Zorko was out. Lyons is playing half forward. Like there's a lot of there's still a lot of ifs with Jared Berry.
The Lions role, there's been a lot of talk of him going forward this pre-season, so it looked like it happened. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but it's just been
lie. There's been one of the best contested on ballers in the league. They're not going to go, hey, play half forward and when we're trying to win a flag, give me a spell.
They've been talk.
Anyone who's tweeting that is silly.
There's been talk of that, so it might happen.
There's been
a lot of talk of that. That's all I'm saying.
From the coach, though.
Yeah. Was it from the coach?
Yeah,
well, I thought it was just tweets.
I thought Fagan's been saying it.
Yeah, probably then. There we go. Then it happened.
Maybe.
So yeah, I've seen a lot of it on Twitter anyway. I wasn't sure.
We need Moriarty K's to have a look.
Anyway, so yeah, take that with a pinch of salt, I guess. But there's been talk of Zorko playing halfback as well, but then there's talk of him not. So who knows?
Chad Berry might be the biggest bust from this preseason, I reckon.
Oh, big call. All right, Grant Birchall role is what I'm going to talk about next. So. So anyway, Kadeen Coleman, he didn't play. He was a COVID close contact, so don't read too much into that. He's not dropped or not best 22 or anything, just couldn't physically play. So they rolled with your boy James Madden, Dossie, and Darcy Wilmot on the half back, and both look really good. So Wilmot, for a first year player, I think he had that classic draft interview where
it's funny.
And he looked really good. And then Madden was just providing a lot of run and dash off that halfback, just a pacey Irishman coming back.
So because I didn't see this one.
Kadeen Coleman didn't play, and they're the one that everyone's talking about.
Okay,
he's going to take that role.
Did you see Wilmot actually a bit of fire in the belly, already suspended for game 1 of the season for a harsh tackle on I don't know who it was. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even see that. That sucks.
Yeah. He's out for round 1.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Wow. Fair enough. That's bad for the people that thought he might be starting in Classic as a cheapie. But yeah, I'm keen on Wilmot for the future for sure. But yeah, we'll see Coleman next week and we'll get a better idea from that. Darcy Fort got plenty of ruck time. I think he replaces Tom Fullerton this year, but I don't think he's going to be a huge fantasy scorer. I'm just not sure how anyone rucks in tandem in that Brisbane side and scores well. Noah Answorth was on a wing and up forward for a little bit as well, just did some nice things. Not sure on his fantasy scoring potential, but a lot of talk about that guy, a lot of hype. So he's definitely one to watch. And Dan McStay played pretty well in the second half. Look, he played like Dan McStay of last year in the second half, but you've got, I think they're saying Hipwood coming back at around 10 or 11. It might not be. Yeah, it might not be.
Half a season of juice?
Yeah, maybe half season juice as a forward, but we'll see how that goes.
Did you mention Danaher, sorry?
No, I didn't actually.
What was he? Do you recall?
It was just Danaher. Like, he wasn't anything special. Like, it was just like he normally has, like, probably scored about a 70. You know,
that's all right. Yeah, 70 aaverageing forwards.
Yeah, I should have. Yeah, I should have mentioned him. Sorry, but like, I was just trying to pick up ones that were a bit more interesting.
I was because you mentioned McStay. I was just wondering.
No, Danaher was in there.
He's up, mate.
Yeah, that's right. Now Adelaide. So their CBAs, they were just trying things. Like, everyone had to go, so we can't really read into this too much. They did look like they had like an A grade stoppage team and then like a B grade and mixing things up. And the A grade was Schoenberg, Crouch, Laird, and Robb. So that looked like their starting go-to. Okay. But Keys was starting out of that. So, but I don't really know what the go is there. Don't read too much into it. But yeah, that looked like they were rolling with that every now and then as like their kind of main.
They're one to watch. Like, obviously every club's watch closely in the proper intra clubs, but they're just one where it's not intra clubs. This week's games, but it's more the Crows' real best 22 look is something I'm just so interested to see where they go with that centre bounce mix with the Crouch inclusion.
You'll see it this week.
Yeah,
definitely.
You have to.
You can't take anything.
They won't have the Hateleys in this week,
but they only had 28 players to pick from or something.
Yeah,
because there was 16 of them out.
You guys see stuff. Dawson, he's 2G for P. Calf complaint as well. So he's not even going to play. So we're still not going to probably see the proper mix.
And the seed may never play again.
Sad news. That is sad.
Well, they said maybe halfway through the season at best.
All right. Let's move on to something more positive for the Crows, and that was Josh Rochelle. So he looked amazing. So just silky smooth, clean, good in traffic, good goal sense. I think he kicked 3. Didn't get a heap of it outside the goals that he kicked, but he made every one of his touches count. I'm not sure how the fantasy scorer he'll go, like be playing as a forward straight up, but I reckon he'll be a gun player of the future and definitely has some fantasy potential. It was a 90 average as a junior, wasn't he, K's around that? So he's got some chops there. Riley Thilthorpe, I reckon, is just a stash candidate. Might not be massive in fantasy this year, but he showed a lot of composure for the future as just a younger big man. They usually take a long time to get on, but he looks like he's pretty comfortable at level so far, and they reckon that his best footy's going to be in the ruck. So when and he's playing a lot as a forward. So when he gets into the ruck, that's when he's going to go big. So he's one you just want to stash away for when that role comes, I think. Now, Andrew McPherson, I was interested in this, so I used one of my my cards to find out his fantasy score.
You wasted it on Andrew McPherson.
And the reason why
I respect that.
The reason why is because Dossie, we went to a trial game last year, and he looked like the fantasy goat out there. Like, he looked like the song should have been about him.
Big Moose. Yeah, his name is Moose. Big, close relative of the goat.
Big Moose. Anyway, and then he absolutely flopped come the actual season. So he did it again to me, and I'm not trusting him at all. But he actually had a fantasy score of 70, and he looked like he just went really well back there. He intercepted the ball pretty well, took a few good marks, took most of the kick-ins too. I've learned my lesson though. I'm going to have to see him again, but I'm still pretty cagey on him. Like I'm more than happy for someone to take him ahead of me. But if the price is right, he's someone I'm looking at.
He actually was a player that was the biggest tearing up. When they did the behind the scenes, Crows are pretty good with their media. They did like a behind the scenes in the gym and they were just like, oh, who's tearing up the track? And everyone was like, oh, Moose. Moose has had the big preseason. That's his nickname.
Yeah.
Andrew first and they're like, oh, Big Moose. He's having a big year this year. So get around him. I'm all about it.
Get around the Moose. All right. And Saligo was one that you said was ahead of Rochelle. I think that's wrong case. But he was quite lively, just ran up and down the wing for most of the day. Could get some opportunities now with Seedsman not being out as well. So we might see Saligo in the mix early as well. I'm going for my fourth game in a row and then I'm done. All right, Gold Coast versus Port Adelaide. I want to keep this one brief. Maybe a Chol. He started up forward.
No, it's a Port game. You should talk through every of their 50 players, you know?
Not with the way they perform, mate.
Here we go.
Maybe a Chol. I'm already on the Sack Ken bandwagon after this game. Maybe a Chol started up forward, then rotated with Moyle. Only had 4 CBAs though, so it looks like the forward is going to be his go-to this year, and I think he'll play with Witts in the side. Kicked a couple goals, but if he's not getting the ruck minutes, I'm not as keen on him as I once was. But we'll see what happens. If one of them goes down, I'm not sure if they actually would roll with Moyle as number one. I think they might have just want to try Chol as the forward. See what their forward option they can give.
Witts shouldn't be too far away.
Witts is going to play. He was in the commentary box, just chatting, so he'll be fine. But yeah, it's just I think he's got a couple weeks still to go. That's all. Well, season starts then. Lockheed Weller is a big one. Now, I use one of my stats on him. 78 AFL fantasy points here. So, he was listed as a forward. He's listed as a forward, and he was playing firmly off the half-back flank and had a huge chunk of the kick-ins as well. Look, there's no Lukosius. Lukosius had a lot of niggles in this preseason, they were saying. I didn't know that. And Bose is out as well. So, he could be the one who... steps into that role off half back. I think Stevie Fizz actually was been talking him up all pre-season, so respect for that because he's been the one who's saying that this is going to happen, and we saw it on the weekend. So, I'm on board Lockheed Weller as of now, as listed as a forward. So, yeah, if he plays the same role next week, then it should be all right.
Funny thing is, everyone wants, it's all Lockheed Weller season, but if you only scored 78, are we getting a little bit too excited?
Matches, it was really wet though, and the pracky matches, they kind of, I don't know, they didn't look like they were going anywhere near full wrap out.
All of a sudden come out, people are going to be like, I've got to draft him as my F1.
But if you look at,
he's never averaged more than 85.
If you look at, F1's, that's a bit ridiculous, but if you look at a lot of the scoring from some of the guns on the weekend, and the ones that have just been done amateurly, they're not big. There's just people aren't trying as much and stuff like that. So you don't take the 78. It probably equates to a 90 if it was a real season game. But yeah, like you said, who knows? It's preseason. They could put him in a different role next week, and
it's promising. But it's not like.
Did you see who took the kick-ins out of? Because I thought Power was going to get.
It was a pretty even split. I've actually got it written here from my sleuthing. So Power took 6 kick-ins. Weller took 11. So that's how it went.
No, well that's okay. That's much different than what I thought. Yeah. Okay.
Cool. So let's move on. Alex Davies just one we flagged as a late flyer. He was part of that midfield rotation again, so just interesting. Will Power, I guess we just mentioned as well. So he had 70 AFL fantasy points because I wanted to see him score the best.
Honestly, I'd be bumping him slightly down now based on if Wellers does have that kick. The kick in was where I saw Power maybe taking.
Let's just wait till next week. But it doesn't.
Yeah, but, it's not like Weller. He's an established name. They're not going to chuck him there and then move him away.
Yeah, well, I'm keen to have another look. I'm still high on Power. But yeah, I've got Weller ahead.
Just slightly down.
Weller ahead
slightly down for this season, especially.
Yeah. Jeremy Sharp, can we just 2G4P him now? Just so classy, off the wing, kicked a big goal, off one step as well. Massive preseason apparently. everyone's talking about how big he's just got rising. He's a rising star eligibility this year as well.
Juicy.
So I think he's paying $50 as well.
My sports bet.
Yeah, I think he's pretty good odds too. He might have come in after the weekend, but yeah. And just the other one, Anderson and Matt Rao. Is Anderson 2G? I think he is. Yeah. But Matt Rao is not at the moment. So they just had 61 and 65 apiece. Matt Rao didn't take a mark for the entire game. So
7 tackles, I think.
Yeah, that's it.
And it was wet, you said.
Yeah, exactly. And Anderson, but I'm just saying that even on a dry day, he'd probably take a few marks. Anderson had 61. I don't think he laid too many tackles, so he was kind of the opposite. So they kind of eat into each other scoring a bit there. But anyway, move on to my boys Port. We'll get through this quickly.
2G, you watched this game. I haven't seen it yet. Where was Fiorini around the ball?
He was in there, but I think he came off he came off early, I reckon.
Yeah, so just rest the guns, rest the superstars. Okay.
Early on, I didn't notice him much in the second half, but I will say that my son did come home at just after half time and did not let me watch much of the second half. Like, it was on in the background.
He was probably resting. That's all good.
Yeah, I remember him coming off before half time, but like I don't know if he came back on. That's all. So the Port CBAs, again, like they were real random as well. Like Xavier Dersma got a stack of them on the inside. Jackson Mead was in there too, so I wouldn't read too much into this. But this was after Port had like conceded 7 goals in the second quarter. Like they played their full strength for the first half and then just kind of stuffed around for the second half. But those guys, if you see those guys in the CBA numbers, don't get too excited. I don't think they're really much to read into. Darcy Burn-Jones had a heap of possessions off half back, but you know, he's just as likely to be, you know, a 50 average the next week, 50 score the next week as a defender. So he could bounce back like he did in his All-Australian nomination year. But we'll have to wait and see on that one. Sam Powell-Pepper was really good. You know, won a few clearances, was good up forward as well, but then he pinged a hammy, so that kind of dampens his chances for round one.
He might actually play round one.
Yeah, cool, good. Jeremy Finlayson didn't get a heap of ruck work. Did get a heap of ruck work because Lycett went down, but he was doing backup initially. The thing I took out of the ruck role at Port Adelaide, I just don't think Hayes plays round one with Finlayson in the side. I think they just roll with him as the backup. So that's just one thing to take away. Zach Butters, I used one of my player scores on that one. 120 AFL fantasy points for Zach Butters. So we can 2G4P that guy now, I think, as well. So midfield for the first half. He didn't get as many CBAs in the second half, but he was just still everywhere all over the field. So there wasn't a lot of goals kicked as well. So maybe that's the CBAs were down. Just one of Port's best for the day. But the rest were all pretty shit. So don't read too much into that. All right, cool. I'm done. Let's move on to someone else speaking for a bit.
Yeah, it's Collingwood versus Hawthorn, both of the 6 quarter games. I know that's not actually possible because a quarter is out of 4, 6 period games. But look, it's hard. They had 46 players playing. It's too much to take out of it, especially for a team like Hawthorn and Collingwood, who are trying a lot of things and still experimenting with their best 22s.
Was this game like because I watched the Geelong Richmond one where at the 4th period, all the AFL listed players basically shook hands. That was it, and then it was just the VFL show. Was that the same in this game?
Basically, or did they Collingwood are up by like 80 points at 3/4 time, and all of those blokes checked out, and the poor Hawthorn guys had to play another quarter.
Okay.
Yeah, so let's start off with the first. Jai Newcomb, he looked amazing. A real big boy in there, attended a lot of CBAs. Very interesting for me because, you know, we know that there's Titch, we know there's Warpedo, who played really well. Titch was quite quiet on the weekend, but Newcomb really kind of bulked in there. He had 11 of the 26 CBAs in that period. Very impressive. So one to watch for me this weekend. James Sicily, he had a nice return. A bit scratchy, but the signs are definitely there. He was playing that fantasy-friendly role. Him and Scrimshaw kind of were a bit of the quarterbacks from the back line there. The big thing about James Sicily is with this new umpire dissent rule, James Sicily might cost you negative 15 points a game in 50s. Like, he gets angry over anything. He gave away a 50 early on for one of Jamie Elliott's 5 goals.
Someone tweeted me last week asking if I could scrape data on players' respect to the umpires so they could see who's going to away the most points.
James Sicily will be ranked up number 1. 850 or whatever. How many players?
Because I think I watched the first maybe quarter of this or something like that, and he already gave away a 50 very early.
He wears his heart on his sleeve.
I think you just touched on him then. I just wondered what your thoughts were for the game on Scrimshaw, because Scrimshaw, when I was watching that first quarter, he would have had like 25 in the first quarter, I think, plus.
He slowed down a bit after that, and I think Sicily became a bit more prominent, but very impressed with the Hawthorn backline. And I might even get the Oracle's crystal ball out here for my call. I am chips in, especially early on, with Lockie Bramble this year. Now, I kind of wrote him off as maybe not being best 22 in the off-season, but there's no CJ, there's no Will Day, there's no Jarman Impey. So there's a lot of guys missing through injury, and Bramble was the guy. He took a few kick-ins. He was a bit of a link man from half-back. So get some Lockie Bramble in your side this year. That's my take. That's the Oracle's take. He was impressive. So those 3 both looked very fantasy friendly.
A lot of visual gags in the pod tonight. We're going to be.
We're audio medium. Sorry,
what do they call those
crystal ball?
What do they call those balls? The ones that you touch, and like the lightning comes out and
zap your
fingers to you. Yeah.
Anyhow,
it's a Manscaped.
Anyway, Lockie Bramble was good. So I reckon they've got him pegged in to be that kind of mover from the back line, along with Scrimshaw and what's his name? Sicily. They played both Hardigan and Frost back there. They played Hardwick as well. So I'm pretty keen on Bramble this year, especially early on while those three I mentioned kind of come back into fitness. Now, Conor Mcdonald, my boy, he was very good in his first hit out. Enjoyed his work. Him and Josh Ward were both quite good. I'll give Josh Ward some credit. But for me, Conor Mcdonald just found it a bit more than Ward, got into some better spots. Both played out on the wing, so I'll be interested to see where they land if they play first round. Obviously, we know Will Day's out. He's a big chance to be on that wing. We saw Harry Morrison. He played majority on that wing too. So there was no Tom Phillips in this game. I still think Tom Phillips will be in their best 22, but Morrison might be fighting one of Conor Mcdonald or Josh Ward for that other wing spot.
Got some AFL fantasy scores for these two for you, Case. Josh Ward, 55, and Conor McDonald had 39. So
interesting.
Yeah,
could have sworn that McDonald had a lot more of the appeal, but
these games are so deceptive. Like, there's so many that I've looked at.
How hard was it?
Yeah. It's so deceptive.
This guy played I think I'll talk about a player later that I just thought would have had like 120, and I think the stat came out, I was like 71. I was like, ooh, maybe not.
But I reckon Morrison's worked his way into that first team for the round, but I think Hawthorn are a team you got to watch. Someone asked on the Twitter sphere what was the take on Maxi Lynch versus Ned Reeves.
Ned Reeves
Ned Reeves got a lot of early hit outs, but I don't know if any of you guys watched any Vision. Max Lynch is a fucking behemoth. He's got the big barrel chest, and he just
automatically
really,
number one ruck, is it?
No, but he took it to Brodie Grundy, and he was a lot better in the air. So they didn't ruck Big Boy very much at all. He played basically deep forward. So him and Lynch and Reeves both got a fair crack at it. Interesting to see what happens this week. I reckon they'll still play all three in that side, but just watch Lynch this week. He's just got a bit about him.
Reeves had the most CBAs, didn't he? He doubled the CBAs.
Not quite double, but
yeah. Like, more. It was definitely the preferred use over there.
Hey, Will Phillips had 56 CBAs and probably only had 4 fantasy points. So CBAs do not
competing for spots though.
CBAs do not equate to scores.
Yeah, I know.
Maxi Lynch on the ground and Maxi Lynch on the ground. He's a
We're basically arguing about who plays, and
which is important.
Yeah, I know, but I'm saying, like, I think if Lynch is getting the most CBAs, he's probably the one who's probably ahead. That's all. Same with like Flynn and Bruce in the one later games. But
I would like to reserve my judgment till this week for all of these kind of games. 6-quarter games, no thank you.
Yeah, true.
Patrick Lipinski. Well, as the world has been told, it is officially Patrick Lipinski's season. And after watching his game on the weekend, the only thing that could derail Paddy Lipinski's season is a DOS video clip. So pray to the fantasy gods that DOS has not ruined every fantasy coach's 2022 with the video. But look, Lipinski was sensational. Kicked the goal early on, and he just looked a real workhorse in that Collingwood midfield.
I've got a fantasy score for you.
Hit me.
68 for fantasy points.
Yeah, is that 3/4? 3/4 is probably not too bad.
Dossie, do you want to? We don't want to shit on the bloke who's been the subject of the song, but even you are getting a little cold on.
He's already ruined his career.
No,
you were telling me something yesterday. What was? I think it's a very good thing that we should actually give our listeners. What's your take?
No, I think he'll be great. I think he'll be the GOAT, as I've said in the song. I just want to make that clear. His handball to kick ratio is a little bit handball happy.
Once again, it's really hard to, like, I know you can see it, but like without seeing stats, footy is hard to watch without stats.
But you're talking like in his games that he has played at AFL level 2. You've done a bit of research on this.
Oh no, it's just because when he does play in the contest, it's kind of like very in tight and it's quick handballs out, because that's why he's a really good player, is that he gives that quick handball out.
Why he's such a GOAT.
I think, he is the GOAT. So I just think, look, the reason we've put him as the song is because I think he's going to have a big breakout in a new inside midfield role, and I think the possessions itself is just going to be enough to get him that big score. But I'd just be, the handball ratio. I wish you didn't bring this up. But yeah, I was like, getting through the end of the song.
We can't keep this from our listeners. It was like, came out your mouth.
The handball ratio. I was just a bit too many handballs there, Lipinski. Let's get those kicks in.
What I reckon's happening is Dossie's actually just trying to throw everyone off the scent, so he can be the only one who picks him, keeps that ownership unique and classic, and he's the only one who's got him.
That's what Sherlock Dossie does. I don't have the hat, but
my money in the jar, please.
Yes. Sherlock Dossie, the art of deception.
That's one. So on to the other players. Jack Ginnivan is how they said it. He played on the wing early and worked really hard. I was actually impressed with his game. Kicked a couple snags, 3 in fact. I did go up forward in the kind of second half of that first half, if that makes any sense. But he's got forward status this year. as I said, I want to see a bit more of Collingwood and Hawthorn next week, because a couple of the guys for Collingwood, especially like Caleb Poulter, Darcy Cameron, John Noble, all those guys played in the second half of the game. So I'm kind of like, does someone like Ginnivan and Tyler Brown like playing early mean they're more guaranteed for a spot? I don't know where they're trying things. So I think for rebuilding sides, next week's going to be important for them. But yeah, keep an eye on Ginnivan, however you say it. But the Dacos boys were fantastic. Joshy Dacos almost looked back to his best and back to that 2020 form. He played on the wing, was fantastic. Lined up on Josh Ward a bit. He was really, really good. And Nick Dacos was very impressive on debut. Picked up heaps of positives off halfback. Even got a few kickouts going as well. So I think it's going to be a great fantasy pickup due to defender status at some stage this year. And I think even next year he'll probably hold it. So it's fantastic. I'm really, really keen on Josh Dacos. We're talking about CBAs. How important are they? Tyler Brown had heaps of them and was basically unsighted.
Same as always.
Yeah, it's strange. Yeah. Jamie Elliott is how the Victorians say his last name. It's Elliott. It's actually Elliott if you know how to use the English pronunciation.
That's fine words with the Vics. Just leave him alone.
But look, he looked really dangerous. So it's been very much publicised from the coach that him and Jordan Ngoe basically going to play a bit of 50-50 split CBAs starting. So him around that stoppage is quite exciting because he can be a good extractor, and we know he's pretty dangerous up forward. As a forward, I think you got to bump him up your ranks this year because he looked fit and firing, so he could be really dangerous. Pendles was another one. That defensive role is locked in. He had some kickouts and all of that. But for both of these teams, I really want to see next week for them.
All right, let's move on to
Sydney versus GWS. Yes. Now, this was atrocious. If you're going to show footage, KO, actually make it visible. Like, it actually felt like this game was filmed on someone's first ever Nokia phone. That's how bad the footage was.
Look how good our live streams are. We should actually just do it and make the cash.
Like country footy leagues film their games better than this. You could not even see someone's number, and the ball seemed to be across the ground all the time. You're like, is that Isaac Cumming? Is that Lockie Ash? You know, like you just had no idea. It was so bad. So didn't watch a heap of this game because it was just crap vision and really bad. So lift your game there. Justin McInerney, our boy, he started on the wing, really starting to develop. He was provided heaps of run and drive early on for the Swans, so I think he'll start on that wing and looks really, really good with the defender status. Chad Warner, he was starting on the ball and just had heaps of CBAs, looked really, really busy. I reckon he's the one from the Swans brigade who's leading that charge to be the next in line after Josh Kennedy. Kennedy hardly played any midfield time at all, floated across half back, and they gave a lot more chance to Warner, and he looked really, really good. So chips in on Chatty Warner this year. Dill Stevens is another one. As promised, he was part of the wing rotation and wasn't too bad. Had a couple CBAs. One I still want to monitor because there are a few.
One of those hard ones to see off in the far wing on that
footage,
I'm guessing.
Yeah. So was out there, but I want to see some footage from him this week.
You want to actually see some footage.
Yeah, exactly. It was so bad. But Braden Campbell, he started down back. I know you're keen on him this year, Dossie.
Long term, probably, but yeah.
Yeah, I was not convinced this year just yet. Still wasn't quite there. And, we've still got Lloyd Cunningham was good back there. Nick Blake, he was really good off the half-back flank. So he took a few kick-ins. He tried to assert himself back there, but I'm just not sure if Sydney are full strength, whether he's going to get that game time we want.
Yeah, I think I'm probably...
Oh, no issues long term.
Without seeing the game, but I kind of seen some of the practice match, even the photos, and it seems like the players that he's been playing on in the Sydney practice matches that I've seen, it seems like he's in that kind of small lockdown role. Like, that's just based on no footage though, so I was keen to see it. Hopefully I want to see if he's more of a freed up a little bit more, because that's the role that I wanted to see him.
That's the role he needs to play.
Yeah.
And maybe until like a Jake Lloyd really goes off the slide, I think that's where he might kind of slot in. Who else we got? James Rowbottom. He was a bit of an eye catcher. I thought he'd kind of ruined his season with a slight pre-season niggle, but he looked really good. Finger. But he was really good. Keen to see what he goes this weekend, because I think the Swans want him in that midfield, so that's really promising. And Errol Goulden, he played mainly up forward and was at times their kind of link player between half-back and half-forward. Big watch on him because I think Tom Patley's got a bit of an injury, so if he's out, Goulden might have to take a bit more responsibility up forward, so might have a bit more presence and be found on the lead a bit more. Just a few GWS players to talk about. Cogs. He looked back. We're talking about Treloar looking back and fit and firing. Yeah, they played Keneally in the middle. He looked he looked back to his best. So for me in the preseason, I was a bit cold on Treloar and Canelo, just coming off, probably injury affected years, and
you're back on.
I'm back on both of them. I think they're both worthy of high draft picks in a startup league.
You think he'd be 2G 4P again very quickly?
I'd say so. Yeah. Lockie Ash played a bit of time in the midfield, had 8 CBAs, also played on the wing. Interesting to see, because obviously no one's tagging in the preseason, and it's kind of been slated that he might be their tagger this year.
Yeah.
Will they try something like that this week? Hopefully, just to see if that's the role that he's going to play, if he does run with someone. Not sure who they're playing, but just another one to watch this week. Jared Brander, the Eagles will be kicking themselves. They've let him go.
Didn't he kick 5 snags?
He kicked 5 snags.
Well, he was recruited as a key forward and never got to play there, right?
Yeah. They kind of played him on a wing or half forward and stuff like that. But
that's interesting.
The Giants will be licking their lips. So I think he fits into that best 22 because he's flexible, like he's that mid-size hybrid.
Did you guys even rank? Did you guys have him in your top 100s? I can't remember ranking
him. He's a midfielder.
Oh, is that what it is? That's right.
Yeah, so
that's right, because he plays on the wing.
Did you guys?
Yeah, he plays on the wing. Damn it.
But he'll get...
Do you have him in your midfield rankings?
I just in my mind he was just a forward because that's what he is.
He'll get forward status added, no dramas whatsoever. Xavier Halloran's a bit of a left field one. He played on the wing. Not sure he's best 22, but he kind of caught my eye. So just wanted to keep an eye on this week. And Matt Flynn is probably the biggest talking point of this whole game. He was the preferred option over Proof. So everyone who's been backing in, it's going to be Proof season, would be pretty worried because, Matty Flynn led the way.
Who started? Do you
Flynn.
remember? So Flynn started in the ruck and they kind of just nurtured Bruce through.
Bruce really only played the back I didn't watch the whole game, but Bruce played a lot more of the back end when it was more reserves. But Flynn was the preferred choice at the start. Now, a lot of the Twitter sphere's gone nuts saying you can't pick Bruce. So I'm not just sold on that just yet.
I'm the same. I don't think
let's just wait and see. Let's just wait and see this week. He hardly played last year because of injury. So
let's just simply be let's get him through this one and then let him loose next week.
Correct. Yeah, I just had a theory that he might be a bit underdone coming into the season.
Josh Kennedy from Sydney or whatever before in the back line. Things are just going to move in this game.
My concerns were actually more to do with the classic side of the game, that if is he going to be in early or is he going to be scoring well early in the season? He might take a while to build into it. That's just my thoughts. I think he will eventually take the mantle.
I do think though, if you are a Bruce owner, you really have to be looking at, or you have to take Flynn as a handcuff.
Oh yeah,
because,
absolutely.
Even if this is semi what they're thinking, there might be a bit more 50-50 split than we wanted to.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to West Coast versus Fremantle. Hopefully the footage was a bit better in this game.
Not really.
Damn.
I mean, I haven't seen the Sydney game, but this one was pretty not great footage, but still
pretty rank,
visible enough, I guess. But the problem was the footy itself wasn't that enjoyable to watch.
Have you ever been touched up that much by Fremantle ever?
Oh, I don't know. Probably not. That was disgusting though, and just injury after injury for West Coast. If you haven't heard the news yet, I think Sheed went down first. So this was the first quarter, 8 minutes in, Sheed goes down with a knee, I think it was, or a lower leg, something. Then it was Yo just before halftime. Oh, before that it was Campbell Chesser, our top draft pick, and he's out for 3 months, I think now. Sheed's out for 8 weeks, I think it is. Yeah. Oh,
where
really?
Is that much? See the Eagles finishing this year?
Well, I thought we were okay. So when you come into the season,
bottom 6.
When you come into the season, I was like, without our midfield, we are the Spooners.
Yeah,
really. But with that midfield, we actually, we have a chance at finals because they're that good.
When I was doing my best 22s, their midfield is their best 22 midfield is so good, and 3/4
without
of them
our
are injured.
midfield, you've got key position players too. Like McGovern's obviously a gun. Nick Nat's a gun in the ruck, not a key position, but in the
Darling,
ruck. And then Darling underdone preseason. Kennedy still, if you count him as still a gun, he still can get it done on his given day. I have the Spoon is not out of the question. You look at North, and I genuinely think they could have us on paper right now with the lack of depth that we have.
All right, we're not here to talk about the actual football.
That being said, so the guys that played well, honestly, there was barely much to talk about. That's the whole point. But the guys that stepped into those midfield roles, which is probably what's important here, it was a couple of weird ones. Not a couple of weird ones. Connor West was one that went in there, but I don't think he scored too well or played that well, but they barely touched the ball. It was one of those games where you just, it's Freo. Jermaine Jones was a random name that went into the guts. So he's a forward eligible player. Again, I don't have the scores for that one, but I don't think he's a scorer at all. I think he's one of those guys that really looked like he was a good extractor of the footy. So I actually wouldn't be surprised if he might be thrown in there, especially with the lack of guys they've got early in the season. Look, I wouldn't even work. I don't think he's worth a punt. I might be way off, but I think he's one of these guys that could be good value, like Nick Nat down to Jones for a quick clearance. But for starters, I don't think you'll get that many midfield minutes. I don't think he's a pure midfielder. He's a mid forward. And yeah, but he was a guy that, you know, I was like, oh, he's playing midfield. I didn't really see that coming.
Yeah.
The guy I think that I want to look at, or the players coming up, our boy Luke Edwards. Just maybe that opportunity to play a bit of inside.
So he got a niggle too, is that why he missed?
Yeah, he missed the game. So and he's been on light duty. So just watch him if he plays this week.
Has he played much inside? Like, he's usually a winger, isn't he?
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. But he can play inside as well. Cool. And like we know, as a junior was an absolute gun scorer. So just one that I want to monitor. You'd be big on Greg Clark if he was playing too.
Absolutely,
he's not playing. So just with West Coast, it's one that I'm keen to see this week. It's a huge watch this week for who's in their midfield, and you've just got to bump your rank.
Like, if you have Xavier O'Neal kind of come up, he's shown a bit in the waffle.
Yeah, Xavier O'Neal was one that looked. He does look like he's got a bit about him, and his disposal that I saw was pretty decent in this game. Like, I don't know how it's been in the past, but for his inside 50s and stuff, he laced a few out, and it was one of the kind of promising signs. So probably Connor West, Xavier O'Neal. Like I said, Jermaine Jones might get a bit of a go, but honestly, they might just move someone like a Gaff inside, and it just throws this out. But then you might open up a wing for someone. A guy that I did think and probably could move into this role and was playing a pretty, I thought, relatively fantasy-friendly role at times, and obviously they barely touched it. But Jake Waterman, and I think you've been pretty keen on him in the past.
Yeah.
So he was kind of floating, you know, when they were getting stuffed. I think they added an extra defender behind the ball, and that was basically, I felt like Waterman got looser than some of the players back there. So he was kind of
And he'd be listed as a forward as well.
Yeah. So he's just a guy that I thought kind of, for me, stood out via the eye test for who could maybe get a few points here and there. There was also a dude that I think wasn't even on the list that played really well.
like vying for a spot.
Yeah, vying for a spot. The key forward, he stood out a lot. And yeah, apologies, I didn't write his name down, but yeah, he looked good, but a key forward, so you're not going to pick him. But I think he was one of the only good players on the day.
Yeah.
Jackson Nelson was one I also mentioned, just because he previously last year had a really bad year.
He did.
Moved on to that kind of, he was playing a bit of wing. So he's a guy that I think might, late punt in draft. He could actually be a fieldable defender, and what's his ADP would be way down, like barely drafted. So Jackson Nelson's one to watch. Yep. And Bailey Williams was playing as the backup ruck.
That was one I was really interested in, if he does play that.
Did he look any good
forward as role?
Honestly, not really. I don't think he did much outside of the contest of the ruck.
Did he go forward? Didn't he go forward too? Or?
Yeah, it was forward ruck. Like Nick Nat was playing. It was forward ruck role, but he definitely was chopping out for Nick Nat and got a fair crack at it. Just didn't see much of the follow-up work. And also he was versing Lloyd Meek because it wasn't Sean Darcy and didn't really
beat him.
Didn't show up essentially. So
all right.
On the Freo side of things, look, there were so many players out as well for this one. Fife, Mundy, Darcy, Aish, Luke Ryan, which Luke Ryan's the big one because the three Freo half-backers in this game, Geordie Clark, Hayden Young, and I've forgotten his name again. I did this on the pod. Heath Chapman. Those three guys looked all like future stars. I was like, I think I was a little lower on Chapman in our ranks and stuff. Man, all three of them look like studs. So I don't know how they're gonna manage to play all of them because they can't all fit in there when Ryan's back. But I'd be almost like, try and figure out a way they should play somewhere in the team. So look out for all three of those. I'd be keen on all three long-term. Clark for this year looks majestic, as does Young, to be honest. So both those two guys. I think Chapman might take a little bit longer to score. He looks probably the classiest maybe of the lot, just in terms of how he goes about it and his disposals. But Clark's very fantasy relevant this year when he gets that defensive status, and Young looks really good. So two guys. Trying to think of other stuff here. O'Driscoll, I thought he looked really good. Like I said, 7 guys out though. How do you tell if he's going to get the role?
Did he play on the outside?
Yeah, so he played a bit of wing and inside as well. Okay, so it was kind of as advertised. Yeah. So with defensive status that he's got. Yeah. For your classic stuff. I don't know what his ceiling's like. I think, if he plays, it's probably a 60 to 70. Yep. It's not a huge scorer, but looks really good for the long term for a stash in your deeper leagues. Like big frame, 190 plus centimeters. So looks good. Will Brodie.
Yeah, here we go. Heard big things.
He was awesome. So obviously it's a smashing, but Will Brodie looked the goods.
Inside mid, but with a lot of midfielders out though.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, but that's.
I'm not pooing on it.
No, but I think he might have tonned up like from the stat sleuths on Twitter. Like
I think it was a big scorer.
He had a lot of the footy and plenty of inside time. So I mean, did nothing to sway my opinion on him. I've been huge on him.
He's been in my classic team since week 1, and he's going to stay
there. I saw a few people just asking questions randomly on the pod about Mitch Croden, and I was like, maybe this was meant for the keeper league?
Mitch Croden is a dead ringer for one of our good mates, someone in our league. So
maybe that's why.
I love Mitch Croden.
Look,
maybe it was one of theirs.
He was getting plenty of inside minutes in this game, but purely due to the outs.
Liam Henry, what was his role?
Yeah, it was that wing, and look, I just don't think from a fantasy perspective, he's an elite disposal. When they got the ball in his hands, he delivered a couple of crackers inside 50, but it doesn't seem like that high possession game. What I will say though is on talking about how all the defenders were juice, it's because Freo were playing a very chippy game in the back half. Now, could it be because they're just blowing out the team and they're just chilling out or whatever? I don't know, but they were like very fantasy relevant. Chip. I think it might have been Will Schofield on the commentary was mentioning how these guys are playing like a fantasy friendly game here. So he loves his fantasy. Michael Frederick was really dominant as a forward as well. So I was kind of keen on him last year. So he was kind of one that I might have been like, I might just consider him in my drafts. Like I think he kicked like 4. He kicked like 3 goals in the first quarter or something. It was ridiculous. All right, I'll move on to the next game though. Unless you guys have anything else.
No, I reckon we'll get moving.
2 fantasy-friendly clubs of Geelong.
Yeah, Richmond, Geelong. This is actually a really good game to watch. So quality-wise, it was pretty good. Outs-wise, we had no Mitch Duncan, Segler, Myers, Menegola, Henry, Rowan, lots of guys out for Geelong. Richmond, Cochin, Lambert, Daniel Rioli, Jack Graham, RCD. These guys didn't play in that game as well. So just to beware of that. But Jack Ross was getting that juice in the midfield that we've been really wanting. Now, you and I, Kays, we were pretty, and I'm not sure if you were on board, but we were definitely keen on seeing who was going to get that number 1 spot. It's hard to say because Jack Graham wasn't in the team and neither was Cochin, but Ross was given every single opportunity to get all those CBAs.
So all those boys played. Ross, RCD.
No, RCD didn't play.
Oh.
Yeah, so basically the 2 people that got the chance was Thompson Dow and Jack Ross. Jack Ross getting a lot of time in there and looked really good.
You know on Ultimate Footy where you can kind of go through and like put little ticks next to the guys you're nominating for keepers? Put one next to Jack Ross this week.
Yep.
Be cool, but look, my team isn't great. But it's like, he's one of my that I might. I still haven't finalised it, but I'm thinking about keeping him. So if he's getting that kind of opportunity.
Yeah, well, and we saw it like mentioned it the other week, round 23 last year. Obviously, that's just trying something new. Oh, is this our next?
And there's been talk the last week that they're going to take Cochin out the midfield and do something else with him.
And if Jack Graham is he's injured. He's got an injury niggle. Like if he's not playing round 1, gives Ross every opportunity to
crack into that side.
Definitely monitor it if they go full strength next week. This guy's 2G for P. Dusty looked back ridiculously back.
Trelaw and Cornelia.
Yeah, all these guys look like bounce backs.
Didn't I pick that on one of the bonus episodes?
Dusty.
Yeah, you were.
I'd probably be willing to bump him up a bit based on that. He looked really good. Nick Vlosten, who I've been pretty keen on, did nothing to sway that opinion as well, was really involved in a lot of the switch play, so it was pretty much just...
he took a stack of kick-ins too.
Yeah, it was and that's what I was kind of bumping him up my ranks for as well. I think he's going to have a huge year. Yeah. So Nick Vlosten,
I was not hot on that earlier in the preseason, but the more I've thought about it, the more I've looked at it and then seen a few clips and stuff.
Maybe one of your best calls ever.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then he'll go and score average 60 this year. And
it was just we're searching. So now without Hooley, there's talk, okay, Daniel Rioli has to be the distributor out there. Oh,
he was missing that, wasn't he?
He was.
Yeah.
But, and it's like, Hugo Routh-Smith actually came out. So he actually played really well. And, I'd be, with his forward status, I think he's mid-forward status, I'm looking at him, in your classics as well, but I'm looking at him just as if he gets the Rioli role, it could be a quick surge, a quick rise to that sort of prominent.
I love it when players like you see get drafted and you go, oh, that's a funny name. and then you just don't think about him again, and then they end up playing like Hugo Rasmussen.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's just...
He's back.
Yep.
But no, out of those two they've lost, and yeah, very keen on him. And see if Rioli fits back in. I think it's Louis, our friend Louis on the pod. Happy birthday, Louis.
Happy birthday, Louis.
Happy birthday to Lou. He reckons Rioli, Ralph Smith might even be ahead of Rioli.
Ooh, big
keep an eye on that. Prestia looked real good. Really good.
Apparently the fittest he's ever been.
Well, really? He looked pretty good. And it's like the forgotten man. You know, he's sliding a bit in your drafts.
Yeah.
And this guy
is.
He can produce. So I've got him in a couple of drafts pretty late, and I think he's going to produce really well this year. Bolter was playing some ruck forward. Not super interested in him, but he wasn't playing super lockdown role. He was playing ruck forward, so that was interesting. I think you would... Kay's keen on a bit of Soldo action.
I was.
So he was playing a very mixed role with Nank, but Nank was playing a lot of forward time, and I think that was just a trial thing. So just watch that.
Do you reckon there'll be a duel? Gut feel from...
Look, Soldo was looking really good in that role.
He's a great ruckman.
And he actually kicked a snag early forward as well, so kind of...
He kicked a few snags, didn't he?
I think he would have. He wouldn't surprise me if they do play the duel again. So
I follow an Ivan Soldo meme page, and it's just like kicked 3 goals in a snag in a preseason game, and then it has like Soldo and then Vladimir Putin, and then like Soldo was like 3 and Vladimir Putin 0, just like dissing the guy. Anyway,
touchy subject.
Oh yes. Yeah.
Thompson Dow looked the goods, but I've got word that he only scored about 27 fantasy
the classic.
points. He looked so good though. Yeah. Anyway, sorry about that. He looked good.
Sorry, I just brought that up because that's how I know he kicked 3 goals. I didn't actually find that meme funny.
No.
Yeah. Sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. We won't cancel you.
Yeah. Good.
Baker played a lot of forward, like we thought he would. And that's pretty much it. Sydney Stack, who's on a few of our radars, didn't play until the 5th period and looks like to be a VFL option unless he's unless that was just a fitness build up. But yeah, looked like a
So basically the gut feel from the whole week is just let's wait until this week to really tweak our assessments of people.
A lot that's probably just going to change by next week.
Yeah, probably.
Geelong though, there was a few interesting names, and I'll get through these quickly. Max Holmes,
the boy. Season.
You're here.
It's Max Holmes season.
You made me look really good for Cam from the Draft Doctors K's, because a few weeks ago he was tossing it between 2 players, and I was just like, yeah, take Holmes. Like, K's has talked him up in the pod this week. I'm big on him, and now he's like thanking us for making him do it. So good on you.
You should listen to the Keeper League podcast.
Good on you.
Yeah, he looked awesome. Lots of CBAs. I think some of the CBAs numbers came out for that, and he was very prominent in there. And they had a fairly strong mix in there. Like Dangerfield played quite a bit of midfield, which is obviously he's going to be in there. Parfitt was in there quite a bit, who actually was really looked really good. So a couple of guys that you were like, oh, are they going to be okay? Holmes and Parfitt did nothing to doubt whether they're going to kind of do okay this year.
Is Parfitt a forward in Ultimate Footy as well?
No, I think he's a mid.
Okay, I thought he was one that got given one.
No,
they both look really good. Narkle, just to sort of sway his a bit in terms of him versus like a Parfitt. I think Narkle played a lot in the second half, kind of like the second 3 quarters. So that's probably saying where he's sitting a little bit behind the pecking order there. The guy I want to talk about that I've been massive on, this is the guy who I thought might have had 130, 140 in this one. It was Zack Guthrie. I think he only scored the 70, but
he had a 200.
Geelong posted out his Twitter on Twitter. Go look at Geelong's Twitter right now, and they posted a compilation of his highlights. He was awesome. I'm not even just saying this as a Zack Guthrie truther. He was ridiculously good. So just keep an eye out on
Believe
him.
it when I see it. I didn't see it.
Tyson Stengel kicked like 4 or 5 snags. He was really good. Small forward though.
Dalhouse is dead now.
Well, yeah. I mean, Stengel was so impressive, but he's a small forward, so I'm not keen.
Oh, no. I mean, like, there's a few of those guys who are just like, Stengel's jumping him for sure.
What I'm saying is, though, for people that see that, score or that performance, I think small forwards are going to have a game here or there because they're going to get on the back of a few. Yeah, Streamer. Looked really good for their best 22 though.
Play him against the Eagles.
So a few young guys that some keeper coaches might be keen on. Cooper Stevens, who has been mentioned a lot in your classic circles as well. He only played on from the 4th period, and got a little bit injured at the end of the game as well. But he looked okay. But the fact, he's starting from the 4th period, then they're not really looking at him this year or early this year. And your boy, Nick Stevens.
Would have looked great.
Looked a bit about him there, but also started to play later in the game. Yep. Was playing in the back line from what I saw. I did kind of tune out after about the 5th and a half period there. But, but yeah, he looked okay. I think he took a kick in too, which you might be pretty happy with for the future.
Just one?
Just the one I saw.
They probably only kicked 1 point, man. So, very accurate, I said, Richmond.
It didn't take me long to tune out from the VFL game there.
All right, is that it? That's all?
That'll do.
It's done. Cool. All right. Well, thanks for listening to the round recap of the practice matches. If you enjoyed the in-depth analysis we did there, please consider becoming a member of the Keeper League podcast and supporting us to do our work. Many resources up for our members on our website, but the latest one was the ADP numbers we put out last week. Now, I've updated these today, so the drafts happened over the weekend, so a few numbers have shifted and things like that, so go have another look at those because they have changed throughout the week. But also, coming up very soon is the Pod in-season podcast, isn't it? So that's exclusive to members, gold and silver members of the Keeper League podcast. So the preseason stuff's out there free, and a lot of people loving that. Some big listenership numbers. But if you want to keep listening, you have to sign up as a member of the Keeper League, aren't you, Dossie?
That's right, mate. Yeah, we're just trying something a bit new, going a little bit exclu on the Keeper League there and, using the Statesman's fantastic insight. We've got Louis as well
fossil
there.
Brain.
And old Dossie steering you to
fantasy success. Second Dossie.
No, I will be just hosting and passing the questions on to those two.
The Dossie, the Fossey and Lou. That's going to be your new...
That's right. But no, jump on board if you do like your classic as well as keepers. We all love our draft and our keepers. But if you're keen on a bit of classic as well, I think we all dabble from time to time, so that's available. You don't have to do anything else apart from just if you're already a member or just silver or gold.
Yeah, you've already got access.
Jump on.
The link's already up on the page. You can subscribe to the feed as well. If you think, you just go to bonus episode or podcast. Podcast Point of Difference in season, and then you'll find the feed there. It's already there for the gold and silver members. I think it's just got the theme song on it at the moment, but there'll be an episode up there after round 1. All right. We've also got the ranking spreadsheets too, but each week we talk about our gold members and we read out a few names. Kays, can you read the golden members out this week?
Sure thing, Hef. Big thank you to Justin Woodruff, Simon Evans, Andrew Zanker, Chris Daniels, James Degenhardt, George Donatsis, Michael Murati, Lennon Berman, Damien Gill, and Hayden Kennedy.
Wait, did you just say my arch nemesis?
Yes.
Michael Moriarty? Sherlock Dossie. Where is he?
I thought you said your nemesis is going to be Hayden Kennedy.
That's the joke. Surely that's the joke.
No, there was Michael Moriarty, Sherlock Dossie's nemesis.
Sorry, I thought
there is Haddon.
Yeah, I thought that was going to be the joke. And then you went with a different one.
You've just gone up to your 4th dossing as well.
Yeah, jeez, you owe some money. That Hayden Kennedy guy, I actually thought was you signing up. I was like, why the hell is Dossie signing up as a gold member?
Because he's got a unique
admin of the
spelling.
website.
He's got a unique spelling as well.
Yeah, I completely read it and I was like, then I saw it and then I tagged you both in the gold members group to have a bit of the Spider-Man facing each other. Anyway, reviews. We're still. I don't want any more reviews if possible.
More reviews.
Stop reviewing, please, so I don't have to go to training. We're at 198 as of 4 o'clock.
Is that ratings?
Ratings and reviews.
When are you going to training next week?
I can't go next week. I can't go next Thursday, but I can go the Thursday after if you get it up there. So, yeah.
Oh, we've only got 2 more, so book that in, mate.
Yeah, 2. I'll have to tell the missus that I'm not going to be home next Thursday week. But anyway.
What's your role out there, mate? What sort of position can I peg you in for that when we do a bit of a scratchy?
Yeah, halfback flank when I was younger, probably back pocket now. I did play a little bit of midfield in the C grade, but I don't think you have C grade, do you?
No, I don't know actually this year.
Yeah, if you got one of them. I hope you got one of them. I don't think if we get 300, I'll be making you 2-side if I'm not, fully committed. I have to get in there. But anyway, it's a long way to go to 300. But yeah, each week we read out the reviews. So Cunning Tom says, just like the description says, a great and entertaining podcast. It doesn't say that. But anyway, it says for the keeper leagues and the lesser knowns. But anyway, like the boys say, this is about looking at the next level of players who make or break your keeper teams. Fantastic resource on their website. Paying for the extra parts that membership offers is money well spent. So thank you for the kind words there, Cunning Tom. All right, let's get stuck in to the listener questions.
Oh, okay.
I just couldn't actually be bothered doing the theme song this week. I'm just going to edit
I was
it out
like
later.
waiting for the theme.
It's just like...
No. We're live on the stream, but I'll edit this part out later because I just couldn't be bothered doing it now. So
All right, so from Michael Bellardi, will Ben Keys hold his average or will he drop off with Crouch?
This is funny for the people watching. We're going to probably have to leave a bit of a gap there. So maybe just start the listener questions again.
Michael Bellardi, will Ben Keys hold his average or will he drop off with Crouch back and the young guys pushing into the rotations? Hef, I want your unbiased opinion.
Don't you want Kay's opinion?
I want your unbiased opinion.
He won't hold his average. He'll increase it.
Okay. Skyrockets. I don't think he goes as big as last year, but I don't think you can write him off. Like, I think he might go back down to like that 90, 100 type range, but I still think he's a pretty handy midfielder to have in there. The type of game he plays is just fantasy because he's not like a super great user or anything like that. It's just like get the ball in the boot, like slap it, handballs, anything. Like he just charges at the ball, gets it, gets rid of it type thing.
He's so fit. He runs hard.
Yeah.
He tackles.
Yeah.
He does all the right things for a fantasy game.
Tackling too.
He's not losing any points because Crouch is back in.
I think you might just see a few less opportunities at the centre bounces, which might cause you to lose like maybe 6-7 points a game type thing, just to bump you down under. But nothing huge.
Like deputy vice captain. They're not like ripping a roll out of him.
Yeah, true.
It's Rory Sloane's, unfortunately, I think, moving on in the fantasy realm.
Yeah, just on the weekend, like I said, there was an A group, and just he wasn't kind of part of it, but he was definitely in the second rotation. But anyway, let's move on to Shenzo James. Lockheed Weller's roll down back for the Suns looked absolutely delicious. Is that something you guys can see him holding all year? I can see it. Can you, Dossie?
They wouldn't be playing there otherwise. I think they want to get other guys involved, like on a wing. If there's not room for Anderson, or in a centre bounce, say if there's not room for a Noah Anderson, or they've got so many midfielders.
Yeah.
If they want to try and Alex Davies on the inside,
they're playing Davies on the wing as well.
And or chuck him on the wing. Yeah, so
yeah.
I think that's going to happen. And
Davies went like in and out. Oh wait, no, sorry, he went forward in mid. So there was someone else that came in and out. But anyway,
and they're missing. Obviously, they're trying this Lukosius forward, so there's the spot. Yeah, it's going to happen.
All right, Nathan Ayres, which of the young mids for the Eagles is most likely to solidify? Sorry, that's what I was supposed to say. A consistent role, Dossie or the West Coast man.
Young mids. Well, I like Luke Edwards.
Mm-hmm. I love Luke Edwards. I've got him on my rookie list. So.
Yeah. I love him, but obviously we need to see him, and it sucks that he's hadn't interrupted preseason because that's what you want to see from a big breakout in his early days.
I've always liked Xavier O'Neal, and it's ground zero. Have to throw someone in there, and he's got centre forward status. I'm pretty sure. So.
I'm going Edwards as well. I just didn't want.
I love Edwards. I'm just saying if you wanted a second backup.
It's
like there's no one. They're all injured. They got to play someone.
Yeah. So O'Neal, right this second, the two players have to be one of.
What about
one
West?
Of O'Neal and
Does
West?
West count? Yeah.
It's one of O'Neal and West, and honestly,
maybe West is probably the one that solidifies it because they've been raving about
I'm
him all
high on West
too.
I'm high on West too.
Yeah, probably West actually. Now I think about it,
such a big watch this week.
Yeah. Harley Philp, opinions on it. We've given one of Berry, Ash and Sin. I didn't do Sin. I've missed him. So I'll talk about him now. He was awesome. Josh Sin, he played on the wing for most of the day. Pretty classy, good user of the ball. I can see it. Like there's just so many players in that type for Port Adelaide though, but he could slide into a halfback. Thing is, like Bergman was out. Carl Amon still did his midfield thing. Xavier Dersmar was playing on the inside as well. So I don't know how it's going to work out, but Sin did look very, very impressive. I do think he does get a go early on in the season, but I'm just not sure of the fantasy scoring potential. What about Lockie Ash? He was...
Yeah, he wing and inside. I want to watch him this week.
Yeah.
I don't think Sin is going to have much of an impact this year.
Yeah.
I think people are getting a little bit excited about him. Kind of like Hobbs, purely just because the role that they play, their teams have a lot of their players.
Long term though, Dynasty you're hot on, right?
Yeah, but I'm not going super early in our redraft or something like that on Sin off the back of a couple nice intra clubs and stuff because I don't think we're going to see the best of him or consistent in their side for 3 years.
I know Port was super hot in getting him in. I feel like they have a role for him, but yeah, I'm just not sure on the fantasy scoring. That's all. Let's move to @patch to the max. What's Hawthorn's ruck shtick? I think we've done that. I think Reeves versus Lynch is essentially this. I've gone Reeves.
Let's see this week.
Lynch. It's going to be Reeves.
I'm going Lynch for the record.
Okay.
Yeah.
You guys are weird. My mouse just died.
Geniuses.
Vulcan left hand as both a Fiorini red goat and sharp owner. I'm interested to see the dynamics of the Gold Coast midfield. Can you count on the goat being the team's most weak? And is there potential for Sharp to get DPP, or is there a pure wing role? Your thoughts? I don't think Sharp gets DPP. He plays in the wing.
He's a wingman.
he wasn't big on the weekend, but I think Fiorini. Sorry, I almost said goat. Fiorini is in that midfield mix. I do think. Like I wouldn't write. He was like in the opening bounce. They had like one of their stronger midfielders, and he was part of that rotation. So
he's the guy that's going to come off the first rotation off the bench. Average 115 off the bench.
Yeah,
and Sharp could go bloody 85 plus on the wing too. I like both of these. I love both of these guys.
Yeah, I don't see a DPP for Sharp though.
Oh no DPP. Yeah. From Trav, can you highlight the fact Max Gawn did his thing in a preseason match? No role change for Jackson. Only time he got bulk minutes is when Gawn went off for the whole last quarter.
Well, that's highlighted. Yeah. I still like Jackson, but yeah, like I think I pretty much said, like I just don't know if the fantasy scoring is going to come because Gawn was just massive. So yeah.
It's still Gawn season.
Yeah, definitely.
You wrote off Gawn season in.
I suggested that it might happen, but then I changed it pretty quickly when I looked at the final scoring, and Gawn lowest score in the finals was 100, and I was like, oh, well, that's not happening then, is it? Yeah.
Ninja Spoon standouts, the legends that got
standouts.
He's saying respect to the legends that got the pen and paper out and recorded the stats on the weekend.
Oh, right.
That's what he wanted to just shout out.
Big time.
Yeah,
when I thought Peter Wright was going massive and he had 12 points or something like that.
Yeah. Although I would have liked whoever did the stats for Guthrie just to bump him up a little bit, just to raise my hopes up a little bit higher. Simon Ev 08812
Got to read out the full to it.
Thoughts on Conor Mcdonald's chances for round 1 start after his practice match performance, and thoughts on Reeves versus Lynch. We've done.
Yeah.
Conor McDonald, you like him?
I reckon he plays round 1.
That's the Oracle speaking right there.
Isaac _WF Max Holmes breakout season
confirmed.
Yes.
Confirmed. Honestly, I probably didn't say enough about him. Hard running, tackling, was doing everything that we kind of thought he might step into. The breakout does seem legit. I think he'll get centre bounces with a forward status and actually play a fair bit of midfield inside.
It's the perfect time to have a breakout with forward status.
Since I got gone asks, what is the average of the player in the same season they are the centre of the music video? Vital stat in the selection of Lipinski. Let's look at the averages right now. You take Fiorini in that year. So what year was that?
I don't know.
No, you look it up.
This is next week's. Come back with a full report.
All right, we'll do it next week. All right, cool. DJ for Brooks, where does Dossie think the new song is going to feature in the Hottest 100? We're 201 last year, just missed out in the top 200.
Well, how are the views going? I don't know if they're...
Yeah, get retweeting, I think. Get retweeting, get sharing, and I think that'll definitely get us up there. Just get the song in front of more people's eyeballs, I think. It's probably the best way to go.
Dossie needs those numbers up.
Yeah.
That was I need to add one more to the...
That's $5. $50 or
donation.
That's a lot of money.
Donation to finish.
All right, cool. Well, that's a wrap then, I guess. So, if you haven't seen the song, get out there, watch the video. We put so many hours into that. Like, Dossie, you've been in my house for so much of the last 3 days. I'm sick of looking at you. Nah,
I have.
We've had a good time.
Actually charged him rent.
We've had a good time. But yeah, I think it was 15 hours in front of the computer yesterday, getting it done. Another 5 or 6 hours recording on Saturday night, plus recording the actual song. That was just the video.
Now we've done an 8-hour podcast tonight. I'm wrecked.
Yeah, it's time for us to go to bed, I think. Anyway, get around us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, all the socials. Keep League Pod there. Make sure you support Manscaped, because when you support our sponsors, you support the podcast. So use Keeper20 on manscaped.com and get yourself 20% off and free shipping. Is that it, boys?
That's it.
That's it. Thank you for a great comprehensive podcast, lads. And we'll do this again next week.
Sounds good.
See ya.
You.
Sick.
$50 Dossie dollars.
See ya, people.